Hey guys, this is your fiery friend the Infernoman here, and if you're into games, you're right where you need to be. But before we get into it, if you like the content that I put out there, I would greatly appreciate it if you hit me up with a like, or even better, subscribe to me. It really shows that people do care about my content. Now, if you have questions, comments, stuff you'd like to see played or discussed, you can @me on Twitter or chat directly with me as I stream 2 to 3 times a week on Twitch. A visual link for those are up on the screen right now, and I will have direct links in the details below. And for today's deck tech, we're going to be covering Flying Pummeler. This is a blue-green Electrostatic Pummeler deck. Basically, it is a combo aggro style where you're trying to pump up your Electrostatic Pummeler to get in a one-shot kill against your opponent. We'll be backing it up, of course, with other energy payoffs and a couple of other cards that can give you a plan B or even a plan C if the Pummeler plan does not work. The deck is, of course, a budget deck like many of our other ones we do, utilizing only 9 rares and 1 mythic. If you are new to this, let's explain, of course, how we run this down. First, of course, we'll talk about the creature spells in the deck. Then we'll go over the non-creature spells. We'll go over the land base. We'll then have a quick overview of the sideboard, a match against Sparky to show you, of course, how the deck is run, and if you do enjoy the deck, a way to upgrade it to make it better. Now to begin, we're going to be utilizing 20 creatures in the deck. Of course, the main game plan is to get Electrostatic Pummeler out, but in case we cannot get it out, we do have a small backup plan. Starting with our 2 drops, we have Longtusk Cub and Servant of the Conduit. Servant of the Conduit is mostly here just to help us get the energy, but if you do need to fix your mana to get out some of our other creatures, it is great to use a little bit of energy in a pinch. Longtusk Cub is also a 2 mana 2/2 cat. With this one, you can actually gain energy if it can deal combat damage to a player. There's going to be some turns, however, where it might be better to use the energy on the Longtusk Cub to pay for it and give it +1/+1 counters. On the other hand, if you do know that you will be able to get a clear path to your one-hit KO with the Pummeler, or in a moment we'll talk about Bristling Hydra, then you might want to save up the energy. It really just depends on what kind of strategy your opponent is utilizing. Speaking of gaining energy with creatures, Rogue Refiner does a little bit of that, and it also helps us draw a card. Not to mention, of course, a 3/2 body isn't too bad to put on the field. It's mostly here just as somewhat filler. The funny thing was, if you ever played in Standard when this was around, it actually got banned. 3-drop Simic cards have come a long way since then. Ronos the Indomitable here is our only powerful creature that actually avoids a lot of the destruction spells in the format with its ability to be indestructible, and also that death touch is not too bad in a pinch. Of course, this thing can't really do anything unless you have another creature with a power 4 or greater, but the good news is you have cards like Longtusk Cub and Bristling Hydra, which are already going to be strong enough to make this a dangerous attacker. Of course, if you need to, its secondary ability, which you pay for 3, and then you can pump another creature +2/+0, also helps pretty much all of our creatures to make the qualification to swing with the indestructible god a thing. And of course, it needs no introduction. If you've seen it before, we'll explain it one more time for those that are uninformed. Electrostatic Pummeler, the whole point of the deck. Basically, this comes out at the field, you'll get 3 energy. You can then pay 3 energy to give it +X/+X until end of turn, where X is its power. So the main strategy, of course, is utilizing cards like possibly your Ronos the Indomitable, or pumping it up by other means to make it a little bit stronger, then pay the 3 energy to basically double its power even higher. Bristling Hydra is also our backup plan. 3 copies of this, because again, we are a budget deck, but for 4 mana, you get a 4/3 Hydra, and of course, it also gives 3 energy, which conveniently can help the Pummeler get itself pumped up. Of course, if you need to, this also can be helpful for itself. Its secondary ability, where you can pay that same 3 energy you just gained, gives it a +1/+1 counter, and also you gain hexproof. Sometimes the Pummeler is a little on the fragile side, as there's not really much of a way to protect itself without wasting energy. If the Pummeler plan doesn't work out, instead consider this more of a simple kind of, energy ritual effect, where you can utilize that energy to pump up either your other creatures, fix your mana, or even maybe use the Bristling Hydra. Sometimes actually that might actually be a stronger game plan. But otherwise, that is going to be it for the creatures in the deck. As far as our non-creature spells, we will be utilizing 18 total. The cards in the deck mostly are going to help us pump our creatures up, give them protection, and ensure that we can get to the mana that we need to cast our spells. Attune with Ether for 1 mana, sorcery speed, gives us a basic land card that we can pull out, and then put it into our hand. We will also get 2 energy. Blossoming Defense, also for 1 mana, helps us just protect our creature, and the +2/+2 pump is also really helpful in a pinch. Cartouche of Knowledge is also pretty sweet here, as it allows us to draw a card so it replaces itself, and by giving our creature +1/+1 and flying for evasion, it allows us to make it much easier for either our Pummeler or our Hydra to swing in without being blocked. High Spire Infusion is actually underrated, I personally think. I know there's some that could argue that you have actually stronger pump spells out there, but the consistency of a +3/+3 and the ability to get more energy can help us either pump up our own Long Tusk Cub or again go to either the Pummeler or the Hydra. And finally, 2 copies of Hadama's Climb. 2 copies of this, if you notice right here, it says it's a legendary enchantment where at the beginning of combat on your turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And of course, if you have 3 or more +1/+1 counters on that creature, you then get to transform this. So this will be able to become a land, but its secondary ability when it becomes a legendary land allows us to give our creature flying and +X/+X until end of turn, where X is its power. So essentially, think of this as 2 more copies of Electrostatic Pummeler when it flips over, which becomes extremely helpful to get in the game-ending win. But otherwise, that's going to be it for the non-creature spells. Let's go ahead and now talk about our land base. Now, as you know, because we are working on a budget deck, we are going to have a little bit of tap lands to make this work, but they aren't actually as detrimental as you think you are. So let's actually begin and discuss that we will need 3 islands, 5 forests, 4 Hayshop Oasis, and again, its secondary ability where you can sacrifice one of the deserts to give one of our creatures +3/+3 until end of turn is actually also nice. So you can think of this as a Plan C pump spell if you absolutely need it. Your tap lands are going to be 2 Quandrix Campus, and 4 copies of Thornwood Falls. Gaining life, it's only 1, not a big deal, but sometimes it does come in handy. And the Quandrix Campus, you're probably rarely going to ever have to use its scry ability, but if you get to it because you're flooding out, it does help you at least try to fix your draw in a pinch. And of course, finally, since we are running an energy style theme, we will be utilizing Ether Hub, which is at least great because we can kind of cheat and use this as a pseudo dual land. Yes, you will have to pay energy to actually get your mana fixed, but in the early game, it's more essential to get out your turn 2 and turn 3 plays instead of trying to save the energy. But that's basically going to be it for the land package. As always, before I even get to the upgrades, I'm pretty sure it's obvious. The first thing you want to do when you do upgrade this deck, if you like it, please make sure to upgrade that land base. Getting at least the shock lands alone would go a major way to making this deck a lot more explosive. Now, as far as your sideboard is concerned, as always, make sure to always adjust based on the meta, but here's what I think currently is going to help us out. For most of the Gruul aggro, the goblins, and some of the burn decks, mono red aggro, use some copies of Ether Gust. Decisive Denial is really good as it has the ability to choose either between fighting a creature that might be chump blocking us, or allow us to counter a target non-creature spell, unless the opponent, of course, pays 3. Again, some of the mono blue decks out there, and of course some of the more blue, such as Dimir Rogues decks, copies of Mystical Dispute are also great in a pinch. Our graveyard hit will be Relic of Progenitus, allowing us to either exile their cards one at a time, slowly and surely, just to make sure we can get rid of the Croaxes out there and other cards that maybe the Arcanist is trying to get out onto the field. Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot is going to be also a great option against the burn decks out there, allowing us to gain some life and also some energy to set up our creatures. And finally, 2 copies of Broken Wings. Not too often you're going to have to bring these in, because usually you have something better to do for 3 mana, but if you really are struggling against especially flyer decks, this is also great to have. But otherwise, that is it for the sideboard. Let's go ahead and prep ourselves for Sparky, and we'll show you a couple ways on how you can win with this deck. All right, and here we go now. We're going to be playing against Sparky to show you how you want to swing in with the Pummeler plan. All right, so what you're going to be looking for in your main hand here when you open up is you want to make sure you have at least 2 lands. You want to try to see if you can get a little bit of card draw, whether it's the Cartouche or you could get the Rogue Refiner, and of course try to get your payoffs early on. So we got the Long Tusk Cub, which can help us build energy. We do have the Pummeler already, and Hadama's Climb also can help us get to the victory. All right, so you know what? Let's keep this. Let's see if we can fight against Sparky. And looks like, ooh, it's going to be red. So they might be doing a little bit of an aggro plan here. In that case, let's get down the Oasis now. So the plan here is we wanted to see if we can pump up the Cub or at least generate enough energy so we can protect ourselves against a couple burn spells. This is going to be a little tricky. So instead, we're going to hold off on the Cub first in case they have a burn spell. All right, put down the island. Let's get out the Cub now. Sparky is going to go with the mono red aggro plan. They going to go swinging? No, they didn't. I'm surprised. Okay. So, now that we have what we need, we have a couple ways we can do this. So, you can go with the Cartouche if you want to now, which will allow us to draw a card, and then we can generate some energy as we start swinging. But I think the Hadama's Climb might actually be a little bit better here, because it already gives us now a counter. We won't attack, but we do want to start generating energy to get through. So, this might be the Long Tusk Cub win. Oh, and there you go. See? Anticipate those burn spells against our creatures, especially if you're playing aggro. Let's get the Rogue Refiner. We'll get a little energy. And we get to draw a card. We'll get a cub in. All right, so we got a couple of chump blockers now. We can pump our cub if we need to, but we're going to hold off a bit. Rogue Refiner is going to have to hold down the fort until we get through all these creatures. Sparky's going as wide as possible here. All right, they got to swing. Okay, so let's see. How do we want to do this? Well, let's attune with Ether. This will give us a little bit more energy to work with here. And we have mostly what we need now. We don't need any more islands, so let's get another forest. Because we only have the Cartouche of Knowledge that we really need the blue mana for. Let us put it on here. Draw another card. And we'll put a Pummeler down. So in this instance, we're not going to probably get off with the Pummeler win, but we can use it to generate energy so Longtusk Cub can pump itself up. So let's do that now. And you're going to see why I'm doing this. All right. And then the Hadama's Climb can also go on any of these. Put it on the Pummeler so at least it can chump block. And we're not going to attack. It's so tempting right now to attack, but now we actually have some big beefy blockers, which will ensure that Sparky can't just go swinging willy-nilly. So you can see right here, Sparky's now struggling because you can see we're gumming up the board. All right, Rogue Refiner draws a card, gets some more energy. Oh, cool. We got another Cartouche, which is good. And let's get out the Hydra now. So we have a couple options here. We could pump up the Hydra. We could pump up the Pummeler if we need to make it stronger. And the Longtusk Cub also can do its thing. So you have a couple options here in terms of what you want to do. We're going to go with the Pummeler just for now. And let's go ahead and we'll start attacking with the Rogue Refiner. So we can get there in 4 swings at this point. I also want to flip over the Climb. So we're going to hold off a little bit. Sparky attack? Nope. Most opponents will try to see if they can try to force their way through, but in this case, it looks like Sparky is wise enough not to do anything to us, which is good. All right. Second Pummeler in. Normally in other matchups, also, you don't want to have to dump your whole hand, but in this case, against we're Sparky, so it's probably going to be better for us to just get in what we need. Pump the Pummeler one more time. This will now flip the Hadama's Climb. So now we can actually use its ability here. So let's show you what that means. We're just going to go all attack, and you're going to see how we're going to win here. Pump. 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 All right, so you can see right now, we are getting all the energy, building up that big energy ball right here. Technically, we've already won. We don't even need to use the Rogue Refiner. There you go. Everything chump blocks, and you already just swing in with your flyers. There you go. So that's using the Cartouche and pumping up the Longtusk Cub for the win. All right, cool. Let's show you another match with the Pummeler, because that's the whole point of this deck. All right, and as you can see right here, we have the board state right now where we actually have what we need. We have 7 energy right now. We have an Electrostatic Pummeler that will give us another set of energy, and a High Spire Infusion, which can give us a little bit more pump. We have the Cartouches, so we're going to try to see if we can get the Pummeler win here. Let's go ahead, we're going to play it now. You notice that we also have an Angel we have to deal with, so this is going to be a little bit tricky, but if it works, this is actually going to be a really sweet win. So there you go, the Pummeler at this point, if we were to pump it, becomes a 4/4, but we're going to hold off a little bit longer here. Let's go ahead and actually put a second Cartouche on it. Because again, we were trying to get this thing as big as possible. And we're going to not attack. We're going to allow our Hydra to just stay and be doing its thing here. We also have the Hadama's Climb. So we're going to then put this on. Even though we already have one flipped, we just need the counters. So let's see. In this instance, we're going to do a little bit of chump blocking here. Just to ensure that we don't lose that much life. We're going to allow the Angel to get through. Okay, Sparky, that's fine. This is okay. This is not what we're worried about. Again, the biggest thing we're trying to show off right now is trying to get the Pummeler win in one big swing. So that's what we're going to try to do right now. All right, so Hadama's Climb. Remember, again, if you don't have the energy, the flipped Winged Temple of Oraska here as a legendary land can also get you there. Forest. So in this case, let's go ahead and we're going to do this now. It's now a 6/6. We can now pump it itself. 12/12. Remember that again, also, you don't have to do this on the main phase. This is an instant speed spell, but I'm of course doing it for the demonstration purposes. So if we were to swing here, and we'll go full control so you can just see how this looks. Pump. This is now where it gets insane. Becomes 16-16, 32-32. We can do 2 more pumps. There you go. So basically, this is how you want to do the Pummeler win. Get all the pumps in, burn up everything to keep doubling its power. Use your High Spire Infusion, give it a little extra energy, +3/+3s. You can use the cartouches to give it even more strength. We can do 1 more pump here, and there you go. You now have 128, 128. Even with Sparky trying to gain that life, it wasn't enough. So there you go. That is the Pummeler win, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that. All right? It is a glass cannon option, but when it goes off, it is sweet. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and show you the upgrades for the deck. As far as your sideboard cards are concerned, they are going to be a little bit more expensive currently than what we do have in there, but if you can get them, more power to you. Of course, this isn't everything that I would recommend. There are some cards that might be a little bit better based on the metagame, but this is what I think would help you out the most. Starting off again, as I mentioned earlier, please make sure to upgrade the mana base, especially because anytime you're playing an aggro style deck, you want to make sure that your lands come in untapped as much as possible. Obviously, go with the shock lands first, then go with the pathway land, then consider the buddy lands, and then maybe 1 copy of Castle Vantress can be helpful in case if you're flooding out and you need to scry to fix your draws. Grafdigger's Cage is going to be a little bit better as your graveyard hate, mostly because they can't pull anything out from their graveyard, and also this shuts down the collected company style decks. Hydroid Crisis is also really good to bring in, as one of our weaknesses to this deck is our card draw is okay, but it's not anything amazing. I mean, the cartouches get you 1 extra card, the Rogue Refiners will get you 1 extra card, but sometimes you need to refill your whole hand, and Hydroid Crisis can be flexible like that, making it as big as we need to in the mid to late game, or in the early game we could put something out to get us a little bit of life, 1 extra card to replace itself, and also put at least a threat on the board. Quandrix Command, Garruk Unleash. Both of these cards are great also for the sideboard, as they help us fix another one of our problems. With Garruk, it helps us create a late game finisher in the form of a good planeswalker that can create for us pump, and also can create for us a couple of extra bodies to sponge some hits. If you can somehow get to the ultimate, oh man, then we shouldn't be able to lose at all. Quandrix Command, on the other hand, is good also as a flex reactive spell, being able to pump one of our creatures, destroy an artifact or enchantment by countering it, or of course bouncing something back to our opponent's hand, and not exactly graveyard hate, but being able to shuffle some cards from a graveyard into the library can eliminate targets that some decks rely upon. Speaking of countering stuff, Repudiate Replicate is also really good in the sideboard as well. Being able to either counter an activated or triggered ability is really clutch in some games, and many opponents never see it coming. And the Replicate side, while not amazing, can be good to make an extra copy of an extra Rogue Refiner, or being able to copy an extra Electrostatic Pummeler to maybe get some energy, or even a Cub. Whatever you need to, it's a great flex option. And finally, and 1 extra copy of Bristling Hydra to get a whole playset, and 1 extra copy of Ronos the Indomitable to give you a little bit more power in the main board. But otherwise, that's all I have for you guys for the sideboard and upgrade options for the deck. Of course, if you really want to go all out with the energy deck, you can also consider the more traditional Teamer energy, which utilizes red. So going into a 3rd color, as you can see right here, this is just a sample deck that I put together, and it utilizes cards like Voltaic Brawler, Klothys here, Domri, and Collision Colossus to kind of add a little bit more variety and gives you a lot more versatility. The only downside, however, is, as you kind of notice, the cost of the deck is going to take you a lot more rares, especially though in the land base. So be careful of this consideration and only take this in if you do have the cards or you're willing to craft to go 3 colors. The only good side, of course, with 3 colors is also your sideboard also becomes a lot more diverse. But this again comes down to personal preference. Again, if you ask me, let's keep it simple and 2 colors for now. And if you do want to upgrade a little bit further and want to go 3rd color, by all means, be my guest. Really, this deck is pretty fair in terms of how it wins. So just have fun with it. Don't worry about trying to go ranked with this one. I can't promise that this is going to be one of those kinds of decks. But again, when this deck goes off, it is very fun to see. And there you have it, everyone. That is Flying Pummeler for you. So tell me, what do you think? Are you a fan of aggro strategies where you go high risk and high reward, or do you just basically miss the energy mechanic from Kaladesh Standard? Either way, let me know in the comments below, and I would love to hear from you. But aside from that, thanks again for watching, everyone. Be sure to like and subscribe if I helped you out, you learned something, or at least I entertained you. And remember that no matter what you do play in the game of life, always be sure to burn bright. Later.